Real quick, before we jump into the show, we created the Collecting Keys podcast to be a real estate investing podcast that is created by real estate operators for real estate operators. And we want operators everywhere to know what it really takes these days to be successful in this business, rather than all the fluff that all the other content creators and podcasters out there make. And so one of the challenges with this is that it's challenging to grow because most operators are too busy out there working, right? And they aren't always learning or actively seeking new learning material. And so if you could please share this show with any fellow operators you can text it to them, you can post it on your socials, you can leave us a good review that you then share somewhere. That would be amazing. But really, whatever, it really helps us continue to get excited to create content. And it will also help you because everyone that you expose us to will get better as a real estate operator and close more deals. So if you could do that for us, it would really mean a ton. And otherwise, we appreciate you guys. And let's get into this episode. We're all mailing the same people. We're all talking to the same people. How are you able to be competitive? What's your sales process look like? What is going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the show by real estate operators for real estate operators so you can continue to grow and improve your business in this ever-changing economy, which right now I feel like is changing daily, sometimes multiple times a day. Like, I don't know. Dan and I literally just got back from lunch with our banker. And I was like, what are you guys seeing right now at an institutional level? He was like, I don't fucking know.
It's a fucking bloodbath.
Yeah. So that is currently the situation. This is your first time here. I am Mike DeHaan here with my normal co-hosts, Dan Austin and Dylan Cook.
Ew.
And we have a special guest today, Greg Helbeck, who, if you don't know, you should definitely check out his show as well. Greg, really quick before we dive in, give us a quick 90 seconds why people should care about you if they don't know who you are.
Thanks for having me, guys. I've been doing this business now for a decade. Seen multiple markets, nothing like 2008, but I've seen these crazy runs and I've seen some of these little dip markets. I've operated primarily virtually for the whole time. I mean, I started locally when I just got started, but eventually, started doing deals consistently in pretty expensive markets. I grew up in New York. I live in Seattle. The only markets I really know are these like high-end expensive areas. So eventually I wholesaled and then it got into like flipping and rentals. So I've done pretty much everything except for lease options. Like you name it, I've done it. And, I don't have a huge team. I have 4 people. We have pretty respectable business in the core Hudson Valley market. And I just try to, share information that is practical. I hate all this guru crap out there. It's so fake because when you're an actual operator, what they're saying is fake information. So I always just share the truth, what's working in the business, what's not working, what's maybe something that's not working isn't popular, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm just really straightforward with the stuff. So that's my business.
Awesome. What's your podcast called?
It's called the Real Estate Investing Fast Track or Greg Helbeck REI on YouTube, depending on where you're listening.
Awesome. There we go. And
right.
if you guys have listened to us at all, you just realized why Greg vibes with us very well because we're about a lot of that same kind of messaging there. Even though we have like our own group, we're like the anti-guru group. Half of our stuff we come and we just talk about like, so all that shit that you learned from those people, here's why they sold you into their $25,000 course and you feel like you wasted your money.
Exactly.
Right.
It's funny you say that. I have a little coaching group I don't even promote.
Yeah.
We have like maybe 7 clients or something. And it's just like it's super small and I keep it small because I want to really help the people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like maybe like a fifth of the income. It's nothing, not like some huge money grab or anything. But like every client who's in there, it's like we literally, me and my buddy Josh, just pour into them, right? Yeah. And we just give them real information. We share our numbers.
It's awesome.
And we cut a lot of crap out of their business because I see a lot of the stuff they're doing is just stupid. Not because they don't know what they're doing, but it's just they don't have that, 10, 15 year like Josh window of experience. Mm-hmm. So we're able to really help them, by giving them practical information.
What I hear you didn't say is you didn't promote any affiliate link during that whole time. So that's how you know.
Yes. Yeah, right. And one of the biggest red flags for me with all sort of stuff is whenever they lead with this message of like, here's how we can like change your life. Here is like the get rich quick scheme. Here's like the fancy pants, super special secret technique that we focus on.
Proprietary technique.
Proprietary technique.
AI.
And there's so much of that BS out there.
Same.
But so much of business success, and you've known this, is just doing honestly like the boring stuff over and over again. Like we had our little scale community call here earlier this morning. We literally spent an hour like going through one of the guy's CRMs and really helping him build out like his call flows. And the funny thing is like, if you're not in the industry, it's literally the most boring fucking thing you can do. Like it means nothing. But we had like 18 people on there and they were like riveted. I was like, was that helpful for you guys? It was like, absolutely. That's so helpful because that's actually what improving your business is.
Exactly.
It's not like, getting your next motivational talk or like getting your little self-hate journal where you have a mirror of yourself on the front. So you can like scream at yourself and then open it and write what you think about yourself.
The David Goggins of real estate.
Yes. Stupid. It's so dumb.
Stupid. And I was telling before we hit record, I was like, a lot of new people, they get really excited and it is an exciting business.
Yeah.
But after a couple of years, you hit a wall and you start to become like, wow, this is a tough business. You can make a lot of money, but it's tough. Sellers are brutal, right? Selling to retail buyers, if you're flipping, brutal. Being a landlord, brutal. Obviously, it's worth it. But there just becomes like, you get some like just hidden wisdom by being around for a while. And you just know what's true and what's not true. So when I see people talking about a secret list, and I've spent millions in mailers, I'm like, there is no secret list. I've bought them all. Every single one. I have the credit card bill to show.
Yeah.
The only list that I mail is the consistency list. That's the secret list.
No shit.
That's right. I've bought in the Audantics, the Dataflex. I've bought in those too.
Me too.
And they're never worth the ROI. And there's nothing special about them.
Dude, I'm so happy you said that. And listen, I've made money from those lists, but we didn't get an exponential ROI. And then I'm thinking I could just go on Envelo, pull a list for free because it's a software subscription. And then it's like we were doing when I used to live in Nevada. I bought the Audantic list and then I had a regular absentee owner list. We got this home run deal. It was from the Audantic list. I go look in my other list. It's on the same list.
I did all that too. And the very few that aren't on a list already were not deals. Like they were some like senior guy with some equity, but like they weren't motivated to sell. Like
it's all timing, right? Like you just got to make sure they have equity and it's timing. Like we nailed the niche lists and those are pretty obvious. Like, they're back on taxes or whatever, but the best list you're going to get is like a niche list because there's a problem. But anytime you hear the word AI now thrown into stuff, you can't predict that. Like the business is too, like the person who's selling their house at a discount, it's such a small percentage of the population. There's no way you could build an AI algorithm to reverse engineer those people because it's such a random business.
Yeah, I can't even tell what they're doing, right? I don't know what that seller's going to do the next moment after I've signed a contract with them. How is an AI system going to tell you?
Just had a lady cancel out in Gig Harbor, like right before we got off the phone.
Right. You just never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, I talk to a lot of people that are newish in the industry. Like, they kind of get it. They understand the basics. And they're like, I don't understand, like how is this stand out? We're all mailing the same people. We're all talking to the same people. Like, wife, how are you able to be competitive? I was go, what's your sales process look like? And they go, oh, well, the leads kind of come into my team and then, they like call people back. But like, I'm like, no, like, who does it go to? How many touches are you doing? How often are you following up? What are you pre-qualifying? What are you using to pre-qualify the leads? How many appointments are you going on? They can never answer any of it. I'm like, well, that's why we are mailing the same people and I'm getting deals and you're not.
Exactly.
Right. It's the actual business. It's the hard part. And that's going to get worse as marketing and data continues to get commoditized.
Oh, it's insane.
Even thinking back, we were joking before the show. Dan and I, we're like essentially dinosaurs in this industry and the wholesale direct seller space. We've been in since 2019. You've been in for even longer than us, Greg. But like, I remember back 2019, there was like PropStream. And then you could use like ListSource, open letter to do mail, cold calling companies for like kind of hit or miss. Like you never really knew if you're going to get them. There was like, if you had to build a Podio, if you're going to use a CRM, there was no AI anything. If you wanted to scrub a list, you had to get really fucking good at Excel and just figure it out. Right. But now stuff has changed so much. And all that does is bring the barrier to entry smaller and smaller and smaller. And so who's going to be better? Not the ones who can do the special marketing, even though that's way easier to sell products.
Oh, it's insane.
I'm using that. But it's the people that are going to have good at sales or good follow-up processes or understand real estate more.
Well, especially too, like, dude, when I was just starting to get momentum in the business. This was in 2018, like starting to like make decent money. Cold calling didn't exist. Like it wasn't a thing. Skip tracing was brand new.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, I want to virtually wholesale houses. This was in Texas. This was a long ass time ago. And every 6 leads, because we were going after like vacant houses that had back taxes, so like highly target. No one was calling these people either. And like now, like that same thing still works. We get deals from that now, but it's so much different because everyone who is on like these lists, everyone's calling or mailing, and you can still make money. And that's the thing that I see with like new investors is it's not like, yeah, they have a sales problem. They're marketing. They don't understand it, but they don't know what a deal is. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, like if you're in Seattle or you're in New York, like you can call them like invisible deals. Like if you know that property, if you knock it down, is worth $2 million and the seller wants 700 grand, you can make money on that, right? It's just, you got to know what's going on. And I think the underwriting is like something that new investors just have an issue with. It's like, even like Tacoma, like if you can buy a house in Tacoma for like 80 to 100K below what it's worth, like that's a deal. It's not the 70% rule minus repairs, right? And if you're offering the seller 350,000, right? And then some other investors offering the seller 2 or 310,000, like obviously you're going to lose that deal, but you could have still bought it and made money. So, and the other thing is having multiple exits, like just to be a wholesaler, just to be like only strictly wholesaling in one market, very hard to do. Very hard. Like it's still possible, but it's completely different. So like, in my opinion, if you're not willing to like take a deal down and wholesale it or maybe rehab it, there's all these like disadvantages. Like you're only wholesaling, you're in one market, you don't have a lot of experience. Like gonna be tough to make money. But if you can wholesale houses and, you know, you maybe are in like 2 or 3 areas near your market, you're not like just willing to buy in the city, like you're increasing your odds of success.
Totally.
Like I was talking to this guy, like, I just hired a mentor to teach me PPC. And he's like, yeah, most of these people don't have a lot of successes because they're in one market, their cost per click is super high and they're only wholesaling. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. There's only so many opportunities.
Yeah.
But if you're in 2 or 3 areas and you can close and novate, you know, that's when you could have more success.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
That's why we're running online ads out in your area. You're in the same state, but like our market in Spokane is relatively small. And so we're running stuff on the west side. And wouldn't you believe it? Almost all of our PPCs have been coming on the west side.
Yeah, it's because there's like 5 million people.
Exactly.
Way more opportunity. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Huge.
So, yeah, and I agree 100% with what you're saying, Greg, on like the exits. Like there's always been like this, you know, concept of needing multiple exits, but you don't really see just wholesalers anymore. Like it used to be, like you could make several $100,000 a year as a 1-person, 2-person operation, just wholesaling, never need to learn how to flip. Now, if you're not just flipping, if you're not wholesaling, if you're not looking at novations, if you're not doing all these other things, like you literally are missing out on opportunity. The shitty thing is when you look at it from a cost per deal and cost per lead thing, like you have to maximize that. You're not going to be in the game very long.
100%.
You need to get those contracts, whether you make $5,000 or $50,000, you have to keep popping them off. And sucks because it's like work. Like a novation deal is a little bit of work. A flip's work. You know what I mean? Like that stuff's work. Wholesaling is a little bit more work. Wholesaling is awesome. Like we just wholesaled one. Mike and I were just reminiscing about it for like $37,000. It took us like 4 phone calls in a week and we made $37,000. Like if I could do that every day, I would fucking do it every day, but you can't.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Not worse.
Exactly. It's gotten to, I think the industry too, like I remember like even when I was in 2015, I was a 20-year-old kid, like it wasn't popular. Like real estate investing was like not a thing. Like there's no such thing as like sales training for it or all these services. It was just like, okay, you want to wholesale a house. It's like a no money down real estate deal. Like that's how it was known. It was a no money down deal, which is still true.
Yeah.
You can still do them. I do them all the time. Just use the buyer's money to fund your EMD and then you're out of pocket zero. But it's like now it's like everyone knows a wholesaler. You have sellers. They're like, oh, you going to wholesale my house? It's like, I might.
100%.
It's such a mainstream business now because like the economy's gone up and down, COVID, like just internet, like so much more popular now.
I can't remember the last time I've talked to a seller and they hadn't already talked to somebody else.
It's impossible, dude.
Oh yeah, that's old news. Yeah,
exactly. So your point earlier is like you could have these one-on-one conversations. Your spreads are probably a little bit bigger because now someone else is coming in and maybe they don't know how to underwrite, but they're offering $30K more. Right. And now they're anchored price too high. You have to like, okay, you're not going to sell this. I'll follow up in a month and then maybe we can talk again. Right. Like
longer sales process.
You want to hear some crazy stuff from 2018, 19 with mail?
Yeah.
It was like $1,000. No, it was like $1,500 cost per deal with mail back in the day. You could send out like 1,800 postcards at 38 cents a pop and get a couple deals out of that. And it was like in the Hudson Valley too, which is like not a lot of competition in New York because it's like red tape city. But it's just like crazy how that's changed. Like now it's like 7-8 grand. You know?
Yeah. And 38 cents a pop. Now it's like 75 at a minimum for postcards.
Yeah, man. Mail
Yeah,
costs
man.
have gone up a lot. Yeah, it's crazy. Even like Google ads and stuff, like cost per click has gone through. But it's like, hey, like that's where I see a lot of opportunity because like I remember when COVID happened, I was freaking out. I had some rehabs going on and wholesale stuff. And I was like, man, what's going to happen here? And I kind of like, got a little timid and pulled off the gas a little bit. And, we had a little dip in revenue. But man, like that market exploded. I mean, the whole country exploded.
Mhm.
And, I was like, damn, like if I put double my ad budget for those 3 or 4 months when everything was just kind of on pause,
Mhm.
would have made a lot more money. But no one really, the thing is, you don't really know. Like, when the interest rates went up, like 2022, I was a little nervous. I was living in San Diego and was doing flips and just kind of like timed that right to where I didn't get hurt. But then like I kind of paused and then like the market really went down, which was a good move. You just never know. You got to have the right fundamentals. And if you're always like, the thing I tell people, because people ask me like, oh, like, isn't it risky you're buying houses? I'm like, yeah, I guess it's risky. But if you think about it, if you're buying a stock at a discount, like if Apple sells at $200 a share and for sure you could buy it for $120 a share, are you really taking a risk? Not really. Like you are, but you're not.
What are you seeing right now, Greg, with everything going on with the economy and all the marketing change and everything else like that? Because if I look at the current state of just like the economy and kind of the world, it feels similar to me to that. I would say not like when COVID was in like full-fledged going, but kind of like the buildup, like February 2020, where there was like some weird stuff going on, and people were starting to get cautious. We have like the tariffs all went active today. We have some political turmoil. We have the wars and stuff. Like the stock market has been tanking for like the past week. Everything else has been dropping. And the challenging thing right now is like, we also have all these new legislations around marketing and everything else. So cold calling and SMS is now much more regulated. All the pay per lead companies have to face new regulations. They've kind of gone down the toilet. The PPC stuff has never been more expensive than it is. Direct mail for us has been in shambles because the postal service is just collapsing. You've seen the same thing with mail.
Horrible.
Between the weather and everything else, like we've had batches of mail that have now been in like out in the sphere for 40 days, and the postal service is like status pending.
I just tracked our campaigns today. They were horrible.
Yeah, they're all over the place. So like, what are you doing to stay afloat right now to keep these leads coming in and doing everything with your, decades worth of wisdom? Well, I don't even know what other options there are for generating leads at this point. Like we've covered all of them.
That's a good question. There's a few things that we do that we don't have control over, but they're really beneficial when they happen. It's referrals and wholesalers.
Yeah.
So I get deals from referrals all the time. I buy houses from wholesalers when the numbers make sense. So that's something where I can't necessarily control it, but when I get something, it's free. So even if I'm only making 30,000, it's really like making 40,000 because my cost per deal is around 10 grand.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I look for. And I can reach out to wholesalers and I can make posts online and all that stuff. So it's somewhat uncontrollable, but I can control the activities. The second thing in terms of the marketing, despite mail being really like hit or miss right now, you can still control sending the postcards out and you're going to get phone calls, right? So you're going to get leads. You're going to make offers just by sending the mail out, right? And that's something you don't have to rely on somebody else for. Yeah, the postal service is delayed and recently our campaigns have been terrible, but we've still been making money despite them being terrible, right? The third thing with regarding cold calling is, this is an interesting kind of philosophy with the cold calling, is because we were spending like 20, 25,000 a month in mail and making the decent ROI from it. It's not like 2019, but still decent. And I was like, okay, we're sending a postcard to these people. It's like, they're getting a postcard every 4 to 6 weeks and we're going to get deals from that. Those same people might answer the phone and maybe we get a deal from that. And I'm like, okay, the cost of cold calling is $1,500 a month or $1,600, whatever it costs, not that much money. We already have the data for free. So what if we just call these leads that we're mailing, and even if we get a deal a quarter from it, it's going to be a huge positive ROI. we got a house right now that we're selling. We'll make over 100,000 on it from a freaking cold call.
Mm-hmm.
And if we didn't spend the $1,500 that month to call it, we wouldn't have that revenue. So I'm taking the mail data, and that's our primary marketing. And I'm kind of building an insurance policy through cold calling it. And we are getting deals, not consistently, but we are getting deals to justify that expense and make an ROI. What I've realized now, even though we're getting deals from it, the cold calling is taking up a lot of my team's time, because a lot of people who answer a cold call, oh, I'd sell at the right price. And now they're spending 10, 15 minutes on the phone and they're just completely jerking you around.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, we're going to spend $1,500 a month. We're going to make some deals out of this. However, we're going to eventually burn out, right? Because we're getting too many smokescreen leads. So then I said, all right, what was profitable? What did I have control over? And I was really good with PPC 2 years ago, 4-to-1 return. We already built out our campaigns. We're going to start running that. Once those are running and they're starting to be, somewhat productive, we're going to cut out the cold calling. We're just going to mail and do PPC and go off referrals. So the point is, you want to do the marketing that you have a lot of control over, that generally gives you decent quality leads. And sometimes cold calling's there, sometimes it's not there. You should always look at it as like a supplement to your business, not your primary marketing. Another thing I'll tell you, and I have a lot of experience with this, pay per lead. We used to crush it with pay per lead, insane 6-to-1 return. All of a sudden, I saw the lead quality go down and the costs go up. And I realized I'm in no control of this. I'm buying the lead, which is cool. You just push a button and get a lead. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know if it went to 17 other people. I don't know if it came from Facebook, Google, YouTube. No fucking clue.
Yeah. The leads don't either. They never have any fucking idea.
The leads don't either.
Yeah, exactly. So eventually we turned that off because we were just, the ROI kept going down.
Yep.
Lead quality kept going down. And I wasn't just trying to be like emotional with it. So I'd ask my friends, hey, we're seeing the same thing. Okay, let's pause that. Put more money in the mail and calling. You got to always be willing to shift around. But my direction I'm heading towards now is, obviously mail is very consistent. Google ads, we're going to get optimized again. That's going to take some time. Referrals. And then to kind of fill the gap right now, we're doing the cold calling to kind of, mitigate any like lapses in lead flow.
Is that one caller, Greg?
One caller. It's right.
Yeah,
one caller for 8 hours a day. That's why it's $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
You were supposed to have your super secret proprietary answer for my lead gen. Dude.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the secret list.
You could have sold me in 5 seconds if you had a. Haven't you read Alex Hormozi, dude? You have to have $100 million offer about how you're going to structure, your deal.
Yeah,
whatever it is, you have to provide more value than makes sense, and then people will come give you money. Come on,
that will work. If you're value first, dude, value first.
Yeah. You know what's interesting with that? Like I've read that book a few times and I thought it was a phenomenal book for internet marketing, agencies.
Yeah. It's hard to translate to what we do. It's very hard.
Very hard with sellers because a lot of the times we've all done a lot of deals on this call, right? So you have to look at sellers. It's like they're buckets. There's the lay down seller, which is the first person to breathe and make them an offer is getting the deal. Those are far and few between. There's the seller that's going to sell to an investor, but they're going to need some massaging. Hopefully not literally. That would be weird, but whatever it takes.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do, man.
Rub, no tug, Yeah. And then there's a seller who's like probably never selling to an investor. They're retail or whatever. So it's like, the laydowns are like few and far between. They're great. They make sense. They make money. But then it's like the sellers who are going to sell to an investor, but maybe they're getting 3 offers or they're not selling right now. That's where sometimes it's just the price. If you can pay more than the competitors, you're going to get the deal, right? And sometimes you can make that work. Sometimes you can't. If you can novate and you can sell the novation, that's usually how you get the deal. But in terms of like risk reversal and stuff, like I haven't really been able to wrap my hands around how to make that $100 million thing with sellers come true, because sometimes they're just going to you like the gas station. The cheapest price or the highest price gets the deal. And there is some value in the relationship depending on the seller. The follow-up is definitely important. If you stay in touch with someone for a while, they respect you and they generally will hear you out, at least for the final offer. But, a lot of it is just the timing. Like, they call you at the right time. They're ready to sell. They know what they want for the house, whatever.
So I'm a big Alex fan. We talk about him a lot on the show. I think that when it comes to his stuff, where it makes more sense is on the buyer side.
Yeah.
Right. And in terms of lead generation. And I think the way that this business has traditionally been viewed is we have the sales process with the sellers, right? If we have the acquisition managers and we always have on negotiations, things like that. But realistically, that's our procurement of our product, you know, and how we make money. Our actual true customer is the buyer, whether it's a wholesale buyer, whether it's a retail buyer, whatever it is, there's value add things that you can do.
They're the one paying you.
They're the ones that are paying you. They're where the money comes from.
Yep. We call it a sales process, but it's not.
Yeah, you know, and on like when you're talking to sellers, it's not that different from going to
It's your inventory sourcing.
It's your inventory, exactly. It's not that different going to your shoe factory in China and negotiating better pricing.
Well, the caveat too is that your supplier is illogical. So when you're trying to play the game theory with your supplier or your seller, like Alex from Ozzy will say, "Oh, game theory. Logically, if this happens, then that'll happen." They're not logical.
They're not logical
because you're dealing with a small fraction of the population who's delusional most of the time.
Most of the time, and so it makes it challenging to actually even forecast or plan anything. And to your point, like timing, or just the way your postcard hits in their mailbox might be the only determining factor. It doesn't matter that you had a report. It doesn't matter that your postcard had blue versus green. It's just sometimes it doesn't matter. And it happens enough that you can't really forecast things.
Or if they get two of the same one, they're like, oh, my favorite color is blue, so I'm going to choose this one.
Yeah.
Right. You know, there's no rhyme or reason.
Nothing represents that more than when you have a seller that you've been talking to for months and months, and then you get a contract signed, and you don't even know the name of your company.
Totally.
Right. It happens all the time.
Or they forget that you were the one that they were talking to last year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or last week, or yesterday. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I was talking to somebody, whatever. And then it's like, yeah, it was me, dude. I have all the phone calls recorded, you know? Like, it's right here.
Hey, sometimes that works in your favor. Like, the other guy was such a fucking asshole. He offered me this. I'm like, who would do that? That's crazy. Well, 20,000 lower, but that's fine. If you can give me about 36 seconds, I just want to share our Scale community with you. So Scale stands for Scaling Cash Flow, Assets, Leverage, and Equity. And it is our exclusive community for real estate operators looking to take this game seriously. In the community, you get to hang out with myself, Dan, Dylan, and other operators around the country who are all working to be the best in their market. We recently did a survey, and every single member said that the community had directly contributed to major growth experience in the last 12 months. On top of that, you get all of our processes around marketing, sales, building a CRM, and you even get preferred relationships with Lowe's and different financing/lenders so that you can get your deals 100% paid for without a headache. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, go to collectingkeys.com/scale. Let's see if you're a good fit.
As a quick aside on the same subject, someone posted like in a local Facebook group, like basically bashing wholesalers. Like, you guys don't know your ARVs, you're asking too much for places. And 9 times out of 10, he's right. Like, some of those deals are awful. But I just commented, I said, if you want to know someone's legit, 1, ask them what their fallout rate is. 1, if they know it, great. It should be around this. If they don't know it, that's a red flag. And 2, ask if they have repeat buyers. 2, if those 2 things, that's going to probably eliminate 90% of the other people out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's funny. I like how you opened that Pandora's box up, Dylan, because the wholesaling is interesting. Because my opinion has changed over the years on this. In 2021, when the market was red hot before the rates took a shit in 22, I was like, I always buy the good deals. If it's a fucking home run, I have buyers text me. They go, Greg, I haven't seen your emails in a while. Buddy, we're still buying houses. You're just not fucking seeing them because I'm putting them on the goddamn market, fella.
Yeah. Wholesaling was big in my business 2022 too. But
I go on Investor Lift all the time because there are sometimes deals there. But the amount of times I actually see a deal on that website is so rare because these people are just, I don't know who's teaching them this, but they're just locking up random shit at any price. Like, you don't have to have zero skill to do this. And they slap it on a website that's not even Zillow, which is really where the market is. And they're expecting some bonehead to buy it. And then I'll go on there and I'll look and it'll be like days on Investor Lift, 85 days. I'm like, you're the fucking seller. You're getting contract for it. Just doesn't make sense. So I think wholesaling will eventually become illegal. And if it does, honestly, I would really like it. I think it would really open up a lot of opportunities in the business.
How much are you wholesaling now versus taking down now?
About 40% wholesale, 60% close.
Okay.
Yeah.
The tricky thing is, and maybe we just see this a lot out here because of like our demographics, but like the stuff so we do almost exclusively wholesale.
Okay.
And the stuff that we go through to get some of these deals closed, no one else is going to do them.
That is true.
Like the hoops with the paperwork, how people move and the title and figuring out their just personal bullshit. Like, we've had so many deals and I'm like, who's going to help them with this? A realtor? No.
No.
Never.
No.
Mhm.
Even like the title companies.
No, they don't do anything.
So if it wasn't our closing attorney, who's a rock star, we've had so many deals that just would never have closed because they're such a pain in the ass.
Just like throw their arms up.
And so that's where like the wholesalers have a role.
The good ones.
The good ones do, but a lot of ones aren't like that. Like you said, where are they most of them learning? It's from the people that are selling the products they want to use, right? They're going to the investor lift freaking closer Olympics with Jim Buttface or whatever his name is. That's like on there.
Buttface Jim.
Like, just sitting there pretending to cold call people, closing, like live. Like, fuck, that's not how this business works.
It doesn't ever work that way.
That's not how this works.
We all know that that's the most horseshit transaction that's ever happened. If they're like one call closing people on some live YouTube video, that's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
That is such a lie.
But, people see that.
They're probably already deals they have in contract, and they paid the seller like $1,000. Hey, can you pretend to be motivated for like fucking 20 minutes?
Totally, dude.
100%. It's one of their employees, dude.
Yeah, except it was $50.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. But people see that, and then they go and they sign up for the $6,000 a year investor lift. Subscription, right?
Well, you said a good point, Mike. Wholesaling is a great business, and I don't think there's anything wrong with wholesaling. I've had people say like, "Oh, you made 50 grand right off the seller's back." I'm like, no, I didn't. I solved the problem for them. They were happy about the price I offered them. There was a buyer who was willing to pay more money. No one was hurt in this transaction. There's nothing wrong with wholesaling. It's just the amount of bad apples compared to good apples are why I think eventually it will get outlawed. Not because of the good guys, because of the bad guys.
A lot of states have already started that process.
Yeah.
There's too many edge cases like that.
I think it's fine. There's nothing wrong with wholesale. Like, dude, everything gets fucking wholesale. I bought these things. It's probably $250.
Yeah.
Apple probably built these for fucking $50. I don't know, maybe less, right?
Not even, probably $5,
Yeah,
honestly.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Seriously.
Exactly.
I feel like in the practical sense, there is a very good use case for wholesaling and like a signing of the contract, right?
Oh, yeah.
That we've just exploited it as an industry and made it a full-time business, which I think what you're saying, Greg, is actually kind of where we're trending anyways. There's too many edge cases where there's people that are just do take advantage or do some like shady shit that eventually it only takes one of those, right? And like you said earlier in the podcast, everybody knows what a cash buyer is now. Hey, are you going to wholesale my house? Or they're like, oh, you're one of those cash buyers. Oh, okay. Like that's like the average American. So that only takes so much time before it bleeds over to the regulators that start learning these terms and what's going on. And then they get one complaint and they're like, we are outlawing this forever. And it changes. But in the practical sense, like there's a good use for assignments. Sometimes it makes sense to assign a contract that maybe you get a property under contract, and you see it a lot in more of like the commercial spaces where you're going to assign something because, it makes more sense to assign it to this partnership group or to this buyer who's actually going to take it.
That's their specialty.
Right. Like something different, right? And it makes total sense. Do it. But we've taken advantage of the system as an industry and been able to make this a full-time business.
Well, it became an industry overnight, basically. Wholesaling, when I started, was not an industry. It was an exit strategy. Like in 2015, nobody knew what the fucking wholesale was. If the attorneys didn't know what it was in New York, they're like, what's this? You're signing it? It's legal. Wholesaling is just an instrument to assign a piece of paper. It's a fucking real estate transaction. But
it's a contract law, though. It's not real estate law. I think that's,
Exactly. But the reason, too, I see, like, I'll give you a good example on wholesalers being shady, and this everyone can resonate. So I got a friend in Georgia. His name's Brad. Awesome guy.
Love Brad.
He has this issue all the time. He gets a deal under contract with an owner from Mail or Google, and he'll run title. And then there'll be a memo filed on the property from a wholesaler like 3 months before. And the memo will be for $200K contract price. And let's say Brad has it wrapped up for $130, right? So the wholesaler at $200 was not willing to buy the house at $200 because it was a crap deal because it's worth $250. Brad has it under contract at the right price. The wholesaler won't release the memo because they have the contract. And now it's like this, technically the wholesaler has to get sued because they haven't performed on the contract. And it causes all these issues. And now the sellers are pissed off. Brad has to pay this clown $5,000 to get him out of the way. That's why wholesaling has a bad reputation. It's because of shit like that.
I've seen that too here in my market.
Crazy. Yeah.
This must be a Georgia thing a lot too, because we have a community member on south of Atlanta.
Yeah, there's a lot of crap in Georgia.
Same
Texas
shit.
Too.
He had some fucking guy from Florida that basically had put a 12-month option on this property to get paid like an insane amount of money. And he shook our guy down for $10,000 to get him out.
It's crazy. Just unethical.
That's the thing now. Like that just never existed like 6 years ago. Like never.
The problem is like, if you go back 6 years ago, people were getting into it. And the ones that were kind of slimy, honestly, because they were dumb.
Yeah.
Now we're starting to get like the smart, slimy people coming in. That's when it gets problematic. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're teaching it and
It
it's
is.
replicating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like a
absolutely.
virus.
Yeah. They're like the actual, like the people that would be white collar criminals if they came from a different background.
Yeah, exactly. Like the guy committing mortgage fraud.
Yeah. Like if they were from the Hamptons and not from like the ghetto of whatever town, they would be like doing white collar crimes for sure.
Yeah, exactly. People who now like they'll teach you how to renegotiate. And listen, we renegotiate sometimes when there's a fucking blatant fuck up. We'll renegotiate. If the seller said X and the reality is Y, we will renegotiate and not feel bad about it.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people teaching now, get the seller under contract for whatever price they'll sell for, and then just beat them over the balls after, you're 2 weeks into the contract.
Yeah, day before closing. Oh, sorry, we're going to be like $30K less. Like, go fuck yourself, honestly. Like,
It's crazy. I had a lady, we bought the house and I never renegotiated, but I renegotiated the terms. We had it in contract. There was no permits, no COs for this thing. It was fucking complete shell. Doing it right now. It's like practically new construction. And she thought the property was good to go. And I'm like, all right, 130, no problem. We'll take it. Turns out there's no CO. It's like a fucking shell, basically. And I'm like, listen, I really should renegotiate with you right now. I'm not. I got to pay a $2,000 permit fee and I want to get a permit, in effect before we close. She was pissed, but I'm like, listen, you fucking told me X and now this is not X. I'm going to still close at the price we agreed upon, but you got to give me a 2-week extension. And she was giving me a fit. I'm like, a 2-week extension to get a permit? Like, come on, lady. Most wholesalers, fucking 40 grand off the price. I'm like, what? It's crazy.
So instead he just put a lien on it and next guy's problem. You're going to shake him down.
Yeah, next guy's problem. Yep.
Well, actually, it's funny. That same lead, we got a call like 10 minutes before we got on the Zoom, and her crazy brother, who's like in a mental hospital, called trying to sell us the house I already owned.
Hell yeah.
oh, God.
I looked at the notes. I was like, yeah.
These are the sellers we're dealing with, though.
That's on brand.
Greg, I got a question for you. One thing I've found the best buyers in my market really nail down their rehab costs. And like, it sounds like you do a decent amount of flipping. Was there a transition of like the crew that you use? Like, do you have the same guys over and over again now? And has your price been pretty steady on like a price per square foot basis or whatever it may be on the rehab side?
Yeah, that's a good question. In New York, if it's a decent sized rehab, I use the same guy. He's a real contractor with a real license, with a real business. He's not some Giuseppe out of his Subaru pickup truck.
Yeah.
He's like a real contractor. So he charges me a little bit more, but I get really good service and I get speed in return. So with him, I use the same guy in New York, very reliable.
You're not subbing out anything. He's doing the whole thing for you.
He's got his whole crew. Yeah, he's doing the whole thing. He just doesn't do HVAC. He doesn't do, I think, electric. No, he does a little electric. He doesn't do HVAC really. So HVAC, I'll sub that out. But in terms of the prices, like, listen, like with contractors, I have my budget that's fairly accurate on what it's going to cost to do that. And this is if it's like a real rehab, not like paint and carpet, like a real rehab, kitchen, bathrooms, whole thing. I know my number pretty well, like 95% accurate. And when him and I go on the phone, like, because this is in New York, I do it all virtual, FaceTime, whatever. The number that I have is pretty much going to be where he's at. And he might beat me on some items, right? But then I'm going to beat him on some items in terms of our prices. And it's ultimately going to add up to like pretty much the budget. So he might bang me over the balls on the floors, but then I might hit him over the nuts on like the kitchen cabinets or something. But it ultimately adds up to where like we're both winning, right?
You guys are both banging your balls together. That's all I heard.
Exactly.
Hey, they do things different on the East Coast, man. I see why you moved to Seattle. You can be less closeted with how you're banging your balls.
People out here are really different. That's how we kind of do it. Like, so he'll win on some items, I'll win on some items. And if the number doesn't make sense, I'm like, listen, fella, like, this ain't gonna fucking make sense. It's rare that happens, but I'm like, listen, we're 15 grand off. Like, I'm gonna either sub this out to a really cheap guy, or we're going to find a way to make this work. But I could always go to the cheap guy, but I don't like the cheap guy because the cheap guy doesn't show up on time. Cheap guy's drunk. Cheap, you know what I mean? That you're going to get, you ultimately, when you hire Chuck in a truck, you get the Chuck in a truck service.
Yeah. Well, I say that because, like, let's say you send the same scope to two different people, you're going to get two different prices back. And how, like, the buyers who are good have that, like, not the cheapest, but they're also not the most expensive. So you have to be also competitive on your ability to rehab and source materials and all that stuff.
And if I buy from a wholesaler, I never rely on their rehab numbers because it's complete.
No.
Smart.
Yeah.
I don't even give the rehab out when I'm like, if I'm wholesaling a house, I never give the rehab out. I'm like, this is the price I want for it. This is what I think it's worth fixed up. And that's an accurate number. I don't put a bullshit ARV because I'm like, if it's a shit ARV, like no, people don't take you seriously. If a buyer knows that, like I have a lot of repeat buyers. So it's like, this guy's ARV is pretty accurate. His purchase price doesn't seem bad off the bat. The rehab is TBD because some guys can get their, own cruise in there for, 30% off. I just put the ARV range and my price and the terms. Hey, this is going to have to go sell within a month or whatever. And at that point, we see where the market takes us. But in New York, at least, and Seattle, we're starting to get there. There are certain buyers I know will take these fucked up properties. And instead of having the whole thing be like a dispo circus, like it's a good example. I tied up this house. New York is like serious business with deposits. So you got to put down like big EMD deposit. I had to put 16.5 non-refundable sight unseen on contract signing for this thing. So I was like, fuck, I got to dispo this fast. I don't want to lose my deposit. So I text this one guy. He's like, I don't want it. I do an email blast out for the property after that. I had a bunch of people reach out, but there was a lot of tire kickers. And then the one guy who was serious was like, yo, I buy in Poughkeepsie. I buy fucked up properties. I saw your price. I need to be at this price. I'm going to close. I know about all the violations you sent me. Like, I'm going to deal with them. And, we sold the deal for a little bit less, but we know he's a good buyer. And he put down, I think, a $20,000 deposit. So at least I'm positive on the deposit. So you got to know, like, if you're wholesaling, who is going to be the most likely the buyer for that property? Because there's a lot of guys who will buy like these hood properties in terrible neighborhoods and they have no problem with them. And then some guys want, like, I always laugh when I see these guys like, oh yeah, I want stuff I can buy at 50% of market value and like these zip codes. I'm like, oh, who doesn't want that?
Yeah, right.
If I ever get that, you're never seeing it, buddy, because I'm buying it,
100%.
They think they could just have like wholesalers at their beck and call. Like there's this one buyer, I'm not going to mention his name, but he thinks like I'm his best friend and I've sold him one house. They like text me like 3 times a week and I like don't answer. And I'm like, buddy, like, I'm not trying to be a dick, but like, I barely know who the fuck you are.
We have so many of those, especially like agents that have been around for a while that are like knowledgeable about real estate and they've like flipped some houses.
Yeah.
They always want a better deal than what you're offering. But they hit me up all the time.
They waste your time
so much time.
Yeah, I just don't answer. I'm just like, guys, like get in line. Like
I know.
If you're a really good buyer, and you've bought like 10 plus houses from me and you've always performed, there is some value there.
Absolutely.
But the truth is, a lot of the times it is a commodity.
Yep. 100%.
Well, and if you flipped houses yourselves, you actually do have general rehab numbers. So when your buyers try to beat you over the balls, like you said, from like the rehab costs, you're like, man, let's go through it. Let's go line by line. It's going to cost you this, this, and this. And that credibility also helps to get the price that you want.
Yeah. And Dylan, I want to correct you. They're trying to beat your balls with their balls. You got to make sure that you say it.
Here's the guru. Here's actually the guru strategy that I'll mention for free with no affiliate link.
Okay.
If you want to make a lot of money wholesaling, just be ready to buy that house no matter what. If you already have an exit strategy in place, hey, if I can't wholesale this for X number, I'm going to close on it. Dude, you're going to blow your wholesale profits through the roof because you're in that position. You're a non-motivated seller.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, if this guy wants to offer me $550 for the house, I'll wholesale it. If I don't get $550, I'm closing on it. Watch your posturing with a negotiation go through the roof because that is how you ultimately make a lot of money on those deals.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it makes you believe in your numbers too, right? Because you're not going to want to buy a piece of shit house. And so if you're trying to wholesale a piece of shit house, guess what you're going to get? Shitty offers, right? And so that's really good. Yeah, actually, I like that.
Yeah, at the beginning of my wholesale journey, the buyer would make it a buyer, then I'd probably had it too high. And I'd go back to the seller and be like, okay, well, can we go 5K lower? And now it's just like, no, these are the numbers. This is the price. Like, do you want it or do you not? Like,
exactly. And I don't do that with like, when I buy from wholesalers, I don't fuck with them. Like if their deal is good, I'll take it right. Like I'm not going to try to like shave them down.
Right.
I'm like, yo, your deal is good. I'll take it right now. And then I'm just hopefully they'll sell it to me. But like I paid a guy in Gig Harbor $116,500 assignment fee like in January.
Damn.
Ooh. And I put it right back on the market. It made $94,000. So I'm like, why do I care if he made it?
Nah, you're doing it wrong, Greg. You got to give them a taste of their own medicine. You got to get to the closing table, see their assignment fee, and be like, I got to do a $30,000 prize shop. Otherwise, I'm not closing.
Sorry, bud.
I had a guy do that to me in Oceanside, California, like 5 years ago when I was living out there. And it was like at closing. And I was like, you fucking scumbag. I'm like, I have to do this now because the seller, I'm going to fuck the seller over. But you best believe I'm never selling you another deal again, you piece of shit. And then he sold it for like $70,000. I made a lot of money on it, but I was like, you're a fucking piece of shit.
What a turd.
Yeah,
what a turd, man.
What a turd.
Then he gave me a free sweatshirt. Because he was like
nice.
a high corporate guy for like O'Neill or something. He gave me a thanks for the sweatshirt. I'm going to wipe my ass with this. But
That's funny. All right, guys. Well, we're coming up on time. We better wrap this up. Greg, really quick, one last time, give us the name of your show and how people can follow you.
Yeah. YouTube at Greg Helbeck, REI, and then the podcast, which is same thing with YouTube. It's called the Real Estate Investing Fast Track. You can follow me on Instagram at Grego_37. And that's how you get in touch with me.
Awesome. Well, buddy, thanks so much for coming on the show. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Greg.
And guys, hopefully you enjoyed that. Go and check out Greg and his show. Shoot him a follow on the socials and tune in next week, you guys. We're going to get a little update on Dylan and his surgery. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Thanks for listening, everyone. If you want more from us, you can shoot us a follow on Instagram. I am at Mike_invest. Dan is at InvestorMan Dan. And Dylan is at Dylan_does_deals. Shoot us a follow and send us a DM to let us know what you think of the show.